Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I want to look at the chart of author James Joyce, author, poet, and literary critic. All right, before I begin, don't forget, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out a lot. And share it if you like this video. And yeah, that's it for now. Okay. James Joyce was born in 1882. I don't know if you can see this. Probably can. His dignities. All right. It's got Sun conjunct Venus, about 5 degrees apart. It's pretty conjunct. In Aquarius, second house. Well, I guess technically first quadrant, but moving pretty close to the second house cusp. So we'll call that a second house. Incidentally, I know it's second house because, or definitely influencing the second house, because he was also a singer, interestingly enough. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the works that he did. He did many novels, or several novels, well-known novels, Ulysses, The Dubliners, I can't remember all of them. I actually didn't read. I've only read a little bit of James Joyce, and he's very interesting and intelligent writer, and he's also renowned for like using different languages and being very obscure with his wording, and it's almost like a puzzle when you read his works. Especially, I think it was Ulysses, the one that's his latest work, last work before he died. Anyway, Sun conjunct Venus is very the sun becomes infused with Venusian flavor, so their personality becomes very Venusian, and it's kind of unusual in Aquarius because Aquarius is very Saturnian, Uranian intellectual. So this is combining two very different things: the Aquarian intellect with the Venusian creativity and orientation towards beauty and artistic qualities. So this is a very artistic Aquarius, combining the intellect and the arts, the creative, feminine Venusian quality. Now, Sun conjunct Venus is a difficult combination. Not gonna lie, because it ruins the physical qualities of Venus, which are wealth, luxury, relationships. However, he did have a very long relationship with his first girlfriend. Like, it was literally like, one and done. Like, they just stayed together till he died, and he didn't die very old. He died pretty young. I'll get to that. So not that part, but it can ruin a lot of things. In other words, it's kind of like Venus gets purified, and the joy gets burned off in youth, or at some point, I guess, depending on. I think if it's a nighttime chart, then there's some delay to that because Venus will become the it'll become the secondary triplicity lord. It's the daytime triplicity lord of earth and water signs. So all the Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo, but also Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And in the nighttime chart, it'll be the second triplicity lord, so middle of the life. It'll have some negative effect. And that comes across as like the burning away of Venusian, of the houses that it rules and Venusian type things. So what happens is that it becomes harder to enjoy because Venus is our enjoyment, right? The joy that merges with the sun. So in other words, their personality becomes very Venusian. I have this, I know. But outside things become harder. The joy gets burned. Best way to put it. personality becomes very creative, beauty oriented, things of that nature. Right. Sun is ruling the 8th house, and that's always difficult thing, and it can easily show problems with the father. In his case, it did. Father was an alcoholic and abusive. So he grew up. He was a good student, studied, and then pretty early on, he started writing. Let's see. Venus is ruling. This is 4th cusp, but 5th house, 4th, 5th, and it's dispositing this whole entire stellium here in Taurus, and 10th all sign house, 9th cusp. So yeah, he's merging this whole stellium with him in the 2nd house, and so we know that he sung when he was young, but the 2nd house will also, for a writer, it'll provide a very prominent voice, also knowledge, right? You know how in so 2nd and 3rd house is still going to be influential. I mean, like, the expression is, oh, you found your voice. Oh, I lost my voice. I found my voice. Like, not the literal voice, but like the ability to speak with a certain, or write or portray, with a certain quintessential quality that expresses the self. That's what it meant by voice. And I think that is very much having to do with the 2nd house, right? So he had a distinct voice, James Joyce. He wasn't like a generic writer. And so a lot of that we can attribute to the 2nd house. And we have this whole stellium here. Oh, let's look at the moon. So moon is 7th lord in 7th house, but 8th whole sign house. So it's moving towards the 8th house. But he did have a very good marriage. It was like his first girlfriend. Her name was Nora, and they just stayed together till the end. So his relationships were good. His marriage was good. Leo moon's very creative, and this is a full moon, so that's quite good for the moon. Shows that, much more active, vibrant moon. So he was much more like socially active and outgoing and vibrant. It's better for the moon, generally speaking, to be bright, right? Bright luminary. I think maybe even more so for a nighttime chart, because it's born 6 a.m. So I guess where he was, it was still dark out. And so I guess the moon is above the horizon. So the moon would have been bright. It would have been a full moon when he was born. So that's interesting. Yeah. So this whole stellium is very prominent. Saturn is the ascendant lord and the 2nd house lord, right? And actually we have a mutual reception between Saturn and Venus. That's very prominent, very important, because now first, second, and 4th, 5th, so his childhood and his education, 5th house education, entertainment, creativity are exchanging houses. And they're also square. So it's a strong mutual reception, not because of the square, but because of the degrees in the signs. So it's lined up by 2 degrees, so it's very prominent. And Taurus obviously is ruled by Venus, so Taurus is very creative. We see Taurus very often with all creative types. Also singers, right? That's not what he's known for, but it is there in his chart. He was a singer, right? So second lord in the fifth, planets in the second. That's quite prominent. But just this whole Taurus stellium, I mean, is really powerful and strong, and it definitely, even though it's fourth quadrant, it's in the fifth whole sign house. So, you could say that, like, home is where the heart is. So his heart is in the fifth house of creativity and education. So he really wants to learn. He wants to be creative. He wants to be like an artistic performer type entertainment, right? That's what the fifth house is all about. And he did have kids also. I don't know how many. A few kids. Yeah, whenever there's a stellium in a house or sign, it's becoming very prominent. So there's a lot of Taurian activity, and you can see I left in this Vesta asteroid just because it's adding to that quality, not particularly by what it is, more like just by virtue of just adding to that energy, just adding another element. You see this often with stelliums. It'll be very prominent for whatever that person's doing, and it's less significant what the planets are, more that they are all gathered together in a certain house. Now you could break it down and look at each individual one and make sense of that, but they're so clustered together, they're all influencing each other, right? I mean, it's going through the whole sign from 6 degrees to 27 degrees, but still. And Pluto, there's not too many planets close to Pluto. That's generally good. I mean, for like, Pluto can make something very intensive, very deep, right? And I guess for certain writers or artists that works in their favor if they have that combination. But anyway, Jupiter and Chiron are conjunct, and he had a very unusual relationship with religion. He was born Catholic, obviously living in Ireland, went to Jesuit education, but was neither religious nor non-religious. He kept a very kind of neutral relationship with religion as he got older. Also, Uranus in the ninth whole sign house of Virgo. Uranus retrograde will definitely be rebellious. So he's not going to be conditioned by religion. He's going to be independent. And his philosophy is going to tend more towards the arts and the practical with Jupiter and Taurus. I have Jupiter and Taurus. It's very practical philosophy, very simple. Actually, and sometimes you actually see very philosophical thinkers with a Taurian Jupiter. So it's not like a debilitated Jupiter or anything like that. It works fine in Taurus. It's going to be simple, very simple philosophy of life. And sometimes simple is the most profound and wise. But it's Jupiter conjunct Chiron, so it's also going to tend to be different in philosophy. Strange, weird. And if you look at his writing, you get the sense that, like, especially the later stuff where it's all like very like convoluted and like different languages and very hard to understand. I believe, well, that's not only the stellium in Taurus, but also the very much having to do with the Saturn Venus mutual reception, because Aquarius is so it's absurd. Aquarius, for one thing, it's brilliant, it's genius, but it's just out of the box and like way ahead of its time. That's the whole nature of Aquarius. It's pushing forward, pushing the culture forward. It's very culturally socially oriented, social in the big sense, not just like, hey, how you doing? It's like the social climate of the world, even, and it wants to it's very progressive and pushing forward. So that has to do with the Saturn Venus creativity being very Aquarian, you know, like just out of the box, very unusual. Mercury's in Pisces, but it's in the third house, third whole sign house, which is interesting, very interesting. I mean, technically, this is the second house, but I mean, these are so wide houses, so I think definitely there's a very strong third house influence. Mercury in Pisces is considered, it's debilitated and in detriment because of its double exaltation and domicile in Virgo. So it's a very interesting. So, I mean, you might be like, well, why is he such a great writer then with a, you know, undignified Mercury at 0 degrees Pisces, no less. 0 degrees is like the degree that's like, it's just, there's no limitations with 0 degree planets. They just go to the nth degree. I think that really helped with his imagination and creativity because there's some other factors. Number one, South Node is in Gemini in the 5th quadrant, 6th whole sign house. Either one is fine. 5th for creativity, 6th for that critical, the criticality, critical thinking, the editing, that's what 6th house is so good for. It's just like hardworking and being very intellectually astute, like just, you know, having that Virgo criticality, right? And it's Gemini, so it's really playing into that intellectual quality. And then this Mars, let me pull up the sheets here. I think you can see this. Mars is stationed and it's out of bounds. So this is like a super powerful Mars. Okay, I just want to see that 26. So the sun on the ecliptic goes to 23 degrees and something, like 17 minutes, right? And that's the normal range of the sun's movement. All the planets follow the sun. You have to understand this. All the planets follow the sun on the ecliptic, right? And the sun has a normal range from 0 degrees being the middle, 23.17 on either side. Any planet that goes outside of that range is considered out of bounds. You can see all the other planets are within, okay, Ceres, it's an asteroid, it's a little out of bounds. But everything else, like the Ascendant is right on the edge. They don't go, I don't think that goes out of bounds. That's just going to be on the ecliptic. But usually planets are within bounds. When it's out of bounds, it denotes something particularly different about that planet that is going to go to extremes. It's in Gemini. South Node in Gemini, Mars stationary in Gemini. Now let's see, Mars is ruling the MC in the 11th house, 11th whole sign house, right? And Mars is ruling the 4th whole sign house and the 3rd cusp. So 3rd and 4th, 10th and 11th in the 6th, fully the 6th. That's a very powerful Mars. And it's in Gemini, disposited by Mercury. Again, so that's really playing into his writing, particularly because Gemini, but also because 6th house. And then Mars is not like the planet that we usually look to for like something like writing. So it's kind of unusual, but it is ruling his career house. And career success as well, 11th whole sign house, 10th and 11th. So fame, notoriety, recognition, career, and 3rd and 4th. So, you know, 3rd cusp, 4th whole sign. So his writing as well as his what he loves doing. 4th house, home is where the heart is, right? 4th house represents your heart, what you love, right? You take that with you for the rest of your life. So that's one of the significations of the 4th house. It's something that you just feel at home with, right? So, and Mars is very initiating as well. So he's this is very, very prominent, along with this Taurus stellium and then the Sun Venus, mutual reception with Saturn. And then this is just like, obviously it's not enough to he's a legendary writer, right? He's one of the most influential writers of all time. Like, sometimes a planet not in dignity, it's just going to add interest, because it's the opposite. It's like, it's not dignified, but it's so extreme. Mercury and Pisces at 0 degrees in third whole sign house. I mean, that's like very, very imaginative. And then this Mars is completely stationary and out of bounds in the 6th house. So it's like he has enough of this contracted quality. Remember, the 6th house is Virgo's original house. That's where Mercury is exalted and in domicile. So he has this opposite quality. And Uranus also is in Virgo. And Uranus is trine the Jupiter in Chiron. But it's also part of like this, it's not a grand Earth trine, but you can see all 3 Earth signs are well represented. Capricorn ascendant with, I left Juno here. This is a minor asteroid. It's usually associated with marriage, but just because it was close to the ascendant, I probably leave it. I can't really say much about it. Except he was married from a young age till he died. And that's trine the Saturn. So this Saturn is very well placed as far as, the accidental dignity. It's good because it's trine the ascendant. 5th house, very creative. Also, Neptune is here. Neptune is the planet of, imagination and fantasy and creativeness and things like that nature. He also drank, so that's also, we can see that. So Saturn, which is this ascendant lord, close enough, 7 degrees from Neptune. Neptune often can indicate drugs and alcohol, and he was a drinker, like his father. And let's see what other aspects are going on here. Moon semi-square Uranus. That's not great because that can make him a little mentally unstable, but brilliant. Yeah. Moon is square Saturn by a few degrees. Also not great for Moon. It's not going to be good for his own emotional well-being, emotional satisfaction. Saturn has a very restricting, but it is his ascendant lord, so that might be a mitigating factor. Yeah, interesting, because I mean he has a much more intimate relationship with Saturn than, let's say, if Saturn was square the ascendant lord, being another planet, especially if it was Moon. But still, it's not great for his relationship. Although Saturn does show commitment and endurance, but maybe not an easy relationship, even though they stuck around for a long time. I was going to say something about Mercury. I can't remember. Mercury is disposited by Jupiter. Saturn and Venus are the final dispositors. They're going back and forth, 2nd and 5th, 2nd and 4th, 5th, right? Constants exchange. South node, north node. Interestingly, during his younger years with South node and Mercury, he wrote a lot, but he did not get a lot of success. And Mercury is dispositing this undignified Mercury is dispositing the south node. Then when he gets to as he gets older, it's activating the 11th quadrant, the 12th whole sign house, Sagittarius. Activating this Jupiter, this whole stellium here in Taurus. And that was much more creative time for him. No, productive, sorry. Productive, meaning that he had a little bit more success, even though he didn't live that long. Like he died at, I think it was 50s, right? Which sixth lord Mercury, right? Right, and then this Mars here, Mars in the sixth. So he had health problems. He had eye issues, and then he had, I can't remember why he died, but so yeah, his health was not good. Yeah, and he traveled a lot. He traveled a lot the whole time, in fact. So that's interesting. Yeah, South Node I mean, this is the axis of travel, Gemini and Sagittarius. So that's interesting. All right. I want to look at the nodes, the planetary nodes. That's one of the things I recently started doing, and I really like it. It's very cool. So he's got tons of South Node planetary placements in his first and 12th, and even a little bit in his second. Fascinating. Well, what does that mean? Well, hard to say. A lot of these are generational. So they're not super close to the ascendant, but close enough. It's Jupiter, Venus, Mercury. Gosh. It's just adding to his ascendant. It's adding to his first house in the south nodes of the planets will represent past learning, past familiarity with all these associations. I think it's even more significant if it's the closer, obviously, the closer the degree to the personal planets. For instance, South Node Neptune to the Sun and Venus. Neptune is very creative, very imaginative. So that shows a real familiarity with the creativity and fantasy. The Neptunian realm. Mercury is exactly conjunct the North Node of Mercury, its own node, North Node, or 1 degree by 1 degree in Pisces. So that's interesting. It's making him even more mercurial, because Mercury is becoming even more mercurial, but especially as he gets older. So like obsessively mercurial, but in a very imaginative way. This could also have to do with how his writing became much more like crazy, like really like hard to read and difficult, and like other languages and riddles, multi-layer kind of way of writing. I'm only going to pay attention to the ones that seem really significant, because by conjunction. So North Node, Uranus, pretty close to the South Node. Again, this kind of obsessive absurdity in his writing. Neptune, North Node and Neptune in Leo, not that close to the moon, but this is gonna add to that Neptunian element. North Node and South Node. The most significant is the Neptune, South Node Neptune conjunct his Sun and Venus, the Mercury, and this guy here, a little bit, South Node to the North Node of Mercury. The rest, not as much. Probably the stellium in the first house is just creating a lot of familiarity. Like if South Node's in the first house, it just creates like, especially when younger, and then like a lot of independence and self-awareness, knowingness of the self. So a lot of, it's bringing in elements of that, very strong, almost like a South Node quality to the first house. Interesting. Let's get rid of these. All right, and I'm gonna leave the asteroids off. Look at the draconic. So he's got Uranus really in the first house, quite close to the ascendant. So that's making him very independent in his draconic chart. Very independent, very brilliant, very, you know, forward-thinking, progressive, even more Aquarian than he already is. Definitely not wanting to follow the crowd, definitely wanting to be unique and independent and stand out, be his own person. MC pretty close to Mercury, mercurial career, emphasizing that, the Mercury. Let's see, Gemini, right? Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Gemini. That's very prominent, right? In the fifth and sixth, well, quadrant wise, it's spanning fourth, fifth, and sixth. But I guess sixth house by whole sign house, all in Gemini. Sixth, fifth, and sixth. Anyway, Gemini, very prominent for a writer, obviously. And then Virgo, whole Virgo stellium. Well, 2 planets out, Saturn and Leo, and then 4 planets in Virgo. Very prominent again, because of, you know, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And we need a strong Virgo element to counteract this Mercury and Pisces. This is highly creative, but just boundaries. Mercury likes to be small-minded. The Mercury rules the small mind, the intellect, right? And in Pisces, it just loses itself. You know, there's just like no limits when Mercury's in Pisces. And people with Mercury's in Pisces often make good psychics, or mentally ill people, depending how it goes. But yeah, they can definitely, they can hear voices from the beyond, the Pisces, you know, spirit world and all that. So we need a strong dose of Virgo. That definitely helps with the concentrate the mind to be able to focus and pull that intellect together. You know, 6th house, Gemini, Virgo, we need all that. The strong Mars, without the strong Mars stationary in 6th house, Gemini, he would not have this contracted ability to be able to write, because this Mercury is too dispersed and expanded. But that helped him out a lot. What else? Mars very prominent by degree, you know, accidental dignity. 10th whole sign house, but it's not a great Mars. But you know, the draconic chart, like other charts, I only look for the really significant by conjunction or you know, stelliums, things of that nature. This probably doesn't do that much here. Likewise, Moon and Scorpio, not that big a deal. It's in the 10th quadrant, 11th whole sign house. Probably just at, you know, his moon is already, you know, has issues. This is just adding another layer of issues, but Moon and Scorpio is very deep feeling and intense. So he was a drinker, all right. So, What else? Neptune. Okay, so here we're completing this grand Earth trine. If you want to take the draconic chart into account, so 6 degrees Virgo, 6 degrees Capricorn, 6 degrees Taurus, right? So getting a lot of Earth, a lot of that groundedness, which we'll need to also as well combat this very expansive Mercury. All right, so that's it for James Joyce. Brilliant author. Read some of his stuff. It's really quite good. He was also a poet, which I forgot to mention. I think I did mention it. I read one of his short stories. Quite chilling. I can't remember what it's called. It's about like this old priest who dies with a smile on his face, and it was kind of gross. I don't remember, but it was good. I studied writing for a little while and had some James Joyce, not a lot, but some. Anyway, guys, don't forget to hit the like button and share it, subscribe if you haven't. Book a reading with me. My website is macroastrology.com. My email is macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. Leave a comment if you like to, and I will see you again soon. Thanks.